Boundaries are such a tricky topic. In fact, one of the things that irritates me the most is when I hear somebody say that you would not have gotten in a toxic relationship had you had a better boundary. I know then that I have met with somebody who has not either really thought about it in a critical way, or they've not dealt with a toxic person who just ties them up into a bind and makes boundaries essentially meaningless and fail. I have never found a person more sophisticated at maneuvering around boundaries than I have when I got into a narcissistically abusive relationship. It just goes to show that we love simple answers to things that are highly complex. And a relationship with a narcissist or anyone who has an antagonistic personality style is not simple. It's going to be extremely complex. And they're going to wrap you up so sophisticatedly and make you feel like you don't even know what the word boundary means, like you've never heard of limit settings, and that you are the most um, poorly run life with a lack of structure and a lack of limits. I so let's start out by talking about what boundaries are, and then how how sophisticatedly narcissists are in their ability to run around you and make you feel super confused, to shut you down and make them essentially just meaningless. Hey, if you guys don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Kerry. It's so wonderful to hang out with you. I'm a retired psychologist. I have over 20 years of counseling experience in a private practice, and these days I primarily do advocate for healthy relationships, advocate for healthy people, for healthy connections and attachment. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. And SJ, I love seeing that you're here, and I'm glad that you're here on your new account and that you haven't, if you guys aren't following SJ, you guys know her as Ladisca Mama, but she now has this new account, so please check her out and make sure to give her a follow. I'm thrilled that she's here in this live. So, yeah, I'm sure you have all heard that the reason your relationship in that didn't go well is that you just didn't have good boundaries. You're just one of these people who just doesn't know how to hold a limit. And that if you had just had better limits to yourself, if you understood better what it took to have a healthy relationship, then you would have never gotten into that toxic relationship to begin with. Hey, Kimberly, it's so good to see you too. Kimberly I know Kimberly very well, and I'm so thrilled that you're here hanging out with me today. So thank you for joining me. I put my glasses on so you can see you guys. So let's talk about boundaries, what they are, and why they fail with toxic people. But so to get started, what a boundary is essentially it's where you end and another person begins. That's the quick and dirtiest way to understand it. So your skin is a great example of a boundary. I can see you. When you walk in the room, you have a presence, you have a body, and that body is a boundary. Think of boundaries like when you own property, it's the perimeter line. When you sign a contract purchasing land or purchasing a home, they tell you where the boundary of your property ends and the boundary of somebody else's property begins. Now, when it's not just skin, it gets trickier because then we're talking about our psychological boundaries and our emotional boundaries, and those are a little bit different. But again, it's all an expression of you. So here's one that just is a simple one for me. I hate peas. I hate them. I loathe them. I can't stand the way they feel in my mouth. I don't like the way that they taste. That's one of my boundaries. It's a non-negotiable for me. Please don't put peas in my food. Now, you are actually showing me disrespect, or at least you're pushing my limits if you said, now, Kerry, you haven't had my mom's peas, because if you'd had it with peas and how she makes it in that bacon grease, and she adds a little bit of onions and maybe mixes in it like almost like a stir fry, if you had that, now then you would know how great peas can really be. You just haven't had my mom's version. That's why you don't like peas. Well, you haven't been listening to me. Now, there's a possibility that I may not have had every possible version of peas, and maybe there's some remote recipe out there that I might actually fall in love with and really like. But I'll tell you, my abhorrence of peas is so strong, you can't really doctor them up. You can't really hide them in anything, and there's no way you're going to cook them because I've eaten them at pretty much every condition: raw, canned, frozen, fresh. It doesn't matter. I don't like peas. They're awful to me. So say that I came back and said to you, that's really super sweet of you to consider that, but I know I don't like peas. And then you come back in and say, I just think you're being touchy. And maybe you're thinking of a different version of peas. Maybe you had like some, various strain, and that I'm thinking of these over here. And that's why you don't like peas, because you haven't had every pea under the world. Now you're starting to like, that's actually a form of minimization. You're minimizing how well I know myself and the fact that I have had lots of different versions of peas. I grew up on a dairy farm and I know that. You're invalidating what I just said to you. You're saying that I don't know myself well enough. So now you're starting to cross a boundary. You're essentially saying that my dislike of peas is wrong or limited or inexperienced, that I don't know myself as well as here I am. I live in my skin. I breathe and eat. I know what I like. And you're now saying, I don't know that so well. That's a great example of a limit crossing. You're then at that point breaching a boundary. So that's a way to think about boundaries. To think about boundaries as expressions of you. So I would love you then to think about boundaries in one other different direction. And by the way, for those of you who are just joining, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm so excited to be hanging out with you. You can call me Dr. Kerry. And I am a retired psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience. On TikTok, would you please like this page, this live, so that we can, I know you've been all talking to SJ, and I'm glad SJ's here, but would you guys like this live for me and start sharing it? I'd love to get a little bit more people in here. That would be awesome. And then also, and for those of you who are joining me on Facebook and YouTube, I'm so thrilled you're here. I know this is normally not my day. Normally I'm here on Tuesdays, so I'm throwing everybody off, but I'm so happy that you're here. And if you're here, give me a shout out and let me know who's the audience. Oh, thank you so, Am. I appreciate that. So think of boundaries in these three ways. I want you to think about like three different concentric circles. I don't know if I said that right. So think of it like three circles. There's the outside circle are things that you hold loosely. That's like, it's a give and a take. Maybe you really have a favorite restaurant you love to go to, but there are other restaurants you enjoy. So if you were to meet up with a friend and they suggest a different restaurant, maybe that's an example of you like, okay, I'm okay with that. I can go with that. That's an example of like kind of a loose boundary. So the outer ring is a loose boundary. Oh, thank you so much for that gift. I appreciate that. Think of the next circle inside as the boundaries that are things that are really important to you, but you can move on it. You can kind of like give. Maybe that's a boundary of it's a temperature you keep your house in. I personally run a little hot. I like my house a little cool. So maybe a boundary for you would be one where, okay, if you want to set it at 70 instead of 68 for the summer, sure, you can cope with that. You'd realize the cost of cooling is too much. You'd be open to raising a little bit so that you can do that. That's a center area. Those are the things that mean something to you, but you can find some compromise with. And then there's the inner circle. The inner circle is your non-negotiables. These are the things that when you give on them, you feel like you've lost something. It's essential to who you are. I'm a person that when I'm in a relationship, I want it monogamous. I'm not sharing with anybody else, and I don't want to manage multiple relationships. And to me, that's super important. It's one of my non-negotiables. Believe it or not, peas is one of my other non-negotiables. I really don't want to, and peas and liver, I really, really, really don't want to eat them. So you have things that you also consider your non-negotiable. So it's really important for us to understand what's in our outer circle, things that we kind of hold, loosely, that we're okay with modifying. Maybe you're a person that says, I like to eat at dinner at 5, but if I'm going to go out with friends, I'm okay at 7:30. Maybe that's an example of the outer ring. The middle ring is the ring that's more important to you, things that you hold a little closer, and it's super, things that are harder, feel some pain if you give on. And then the inner ring are the things that are non-negotiables. For example, here's where people get in trouble when they go international or live in another country. What considered non-negotiable in America, U.S., may not be non-negotiable in another country. I know that, for example, when I was in other countries, they are a little looser with child caring. Maybe disciplining a friend's kids is okay. Now, disciplining your friends' kids here in the United States, that's not okay. For most of us, that would be considered a non-negotiable. I know from living in Mexico that it is a regular thing to ask your employer for in advance, that it is not considered inappropriate to go to your employer to say, hey, would you mind giving me some money and helping me out with this pay period, or going to friends and family for money. That's a very common thing. Here in the United States, we don't go to your employer. They're gonna like, that's gonna ding you. It would really look really bad on you. They probably would say no in most corporations. And also, it's just not something, maybe you can ask a really close family member or somebody who really is close to you as a friend, but generally you don't typically do it unless it's a critical emergency. So things can vary. That's the other thing about non-negotiables. They can vary from one country to another. So it's important to remember that just because it's a non-negotiable for you doesn't mean that maybe in another country, in another place, under different experiences, it would be less of a non-negotiable. So that's a kind of a rough, quick definitions of boundaries. Again, remember, boundaries are expressions of you. So what happens when we get into a narcissistic relationship, and why do boundaries go so wrong when we have a narcissist in our life or somebody who is highly conflictual? Well, first of all, boundaries, one of the big things, and I'm thinking why, there's two big reasons how narcissists experience boundaries. And then the second problem is how narcissists and highly conflictual people view relationships. So I'm kind of caught between which do I talk about first. Let's talk about how they view relationships, and then we'll move to how they view boundaries. So how narcissists and other cluster B personality types tend to view relationships is that they don't really view it as a we experience. It's not something that that they get into you to create this collaborative, mutually intimate personal space where you both edify, build up, and encourage each other. That's what most of us who understand a commitment, like we say when we're getting like having somebody move in, or we're really saying you're my person in the world, or we get married, we generally think of we're building this like it's almost like an operating system in a way. It's like a shell, like a structure. We're building a structure of us. There's you and me, and then we've created this us in the center. And this us, we have these rules that protect us, and that we perceive that that we're mutually invested in this, that we're going to both pour in, we're both taking risks, where there's this I've got your back kind of feeling. There's this perception of this unity, that we have something that we've created that's bigger than ourselves. Hey, so good to see you on my way. And Mary Benson, it's very nice to meet you today. I'm so thrilled that you guys are here. So when we create a relationship, there's these assumptions that we make about relationships. And the problem is narcissistic people who have this antagonistic worldview, don't see it as building an us. There is never an us in their world. There's always themselves. There's always the me. They're watching out for me. So we get in trouble when we think that we have an us identity, what we've created this sense of togetherness, and that we start to have this safety inside of it. That there's this cooperation and an effort to sort of keep it safe, protect it, watch out for it, and do these things to kind of like for the benefit of it. So what happens is the person who's not narcissistic gets into the relationship and they start dedicating themselves and giving more of themselves, giving their resources. They're investing, they're giving their energy. They're making compromises, they're negotiating, they're doing all this sharing, assuming that there is this collectiveness that we've created. And unfortunately, the narcissist has never joined it. Now, what's so devastating is it appears like they have joined it. They give signals that they are part of this relationship with you, this us world with you, but they really actually have never really literally joined it. It's so that's the part that's hard, because it's this deception that happens. Now, I would say, people might ask me, well, do they know they're doing this? I think some know it. I think some don't know it. I think there are those out there who don't recognize the fact that they don't really know what intimacy is, that this is the closest they've ever experienced. So in their opinion, it is intimacy. I don't think they understand the fact that this is not, and that their self-protectiveness and their the degree that they're I'm trying to think the right word, almost, not only egocentric, but it's also exploitive, to the degree that they kind of watch for their own back to the exclusion of the relationship's back, is actually a betrayal, a violation of it. I don't think they see that. I think that they think this is what everybody is doing, and so when you're upset about it, I think they don't get it. They don't get what you're talking about, because it's just really a foreign concept. I do think that there are people that give the perception of a commitment of creating an us, but they're actually not, and they know they're not, and that they actually see this as an opportunity to exploit you, because now they know that you've thrown yourself in and made yourself increasingly vulnerable, and that's going to allow them to sort of go in and kind of loot your benefits, loot you. That's like if it's a storefront, they sort of see this as, security is down. Now I can go in and take out what I want. So I think there are people who definitely are more predatory, and that they would take advantage of that. Whereas I also think there are people who are not as predatory, and they're just obtuse, that's not how relationships work. So you got both of those people, both of those groups going. The predatory group, who is actually taking advantage and stealing, looting, going behind, for example, my ex embezzled from our personal account that was actually, I funded it was all my money, and he would take the money out and say he was holding it, but then it would start coming up short or go missing. That's an example that he was taking advantage of access to something that I thought was, we're collaborating together. Instead, it wasn't a collaboration. It was actually very exploitive, and I didn't know that. And that's one really big risk as we get into these relationships. We don't recognize we're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't view the relationship as a safe container that they're going to get in and take it advantage, get in and invest in it to the same degree. I had a friend, and I like this analogy. What you want to think of relationships like a football field. You know how with two teams. Now, what I don't like about the analogy is this is a competition. Football's a competition. I'm not talking about it from a standpoint of a competition. I'm talking about it. Hey, so good to see you, Scrap Along. I'm so happy you changed your name. I love it. Oh man, that was so worth it. Thank you so much for that. So anyway, back to my analogy of a football field. So it's not two people getting on a football field to compete, although that's how antagonistic people view it. It's that you get on the football field and you assume that you meet in the middle. That's my point. So don't see it as two people competing. Just see, it's highly competitive, but it's a highly competitive competition. Well, you're right. You do have to agree upon the rules, but you're competing against each other. There's where the analogy falls apart, James. So imagine that that we're meeting in the middle of the field. It'd be like one team saying, "Oh, I'm in the middle of the field," but they're way back on their end zone. They're never coming out to meet you. So that would be a good example of, they say, "I'm on the field," and they'll complain that you're upset that they're not meeting you in the middle, but they're way back in the end zone and they're never coming out. So So view it that way. You want to look for people who mutually invest in the relationship, not somebody who says, just think I'm in the relationship because I showed up. No, you're not. I used to think of it like the hokey pokey game. You know how the hokey pokey, do you ever play that as a kid? At the end of the hokey pokey game, you put your right arm in, and you put your head in, and you put your left leg in. At the very end, you put your whole self in. Well, people who are antagonistic never put their whole self in. So watch out for that. That's where boundaries go wrong. Why they're so good at weaponizing boundaries against us is because they never create this collective us ever. Okay, the other problem is that, thanks, James. The other problem with narcissist and boundaries is that boundaries to narcissists are seen as ultimatums because they're never invested in the relationship. And I'm glad I started there first. See, when you create an us container and you join it, you're invested. You now have skin in the game. more than skin, you have yourself in the game. Your whole self is in the game. And so anything that happens inside that us container is soul crushing because it's part of you. You've made it a part of who you are. But they haven't joined, and we don't know that they haven't joined. So when they treat a boundary like an ultimatum, their solution is, if I don't like it, I'm out of this relationship. I don't need to stay. Which then, see how they threaten the relationship? Because they've never invested in it. They're not actually in it with you. They just say they're in it, but they're not really in it. So the way they control you is to use your investment in the relationship against you, which is so problematic. So if you say something like, you know, you forgot the garbage and this is the third time and it's such a pain in the butt to have it stay in the garage because it stinks. You know what? If you don't like it, there's the door. That's what they'll do. They'll literally they'll just up the ante and then threaten to end the relationship if they don't like it, if it feels like too much. And that throws us so much so. So that's one way they really like manipulate us, is to do that, is to create everything as an all or nothing, everything as an ultimatum. And then the other thing they do is they make you feel really bad about yourself. So if you set a limit, they'll push it on some weird angle. Like if you said to them, hey, I'm going to bed tonight at 10, they'll bring up this pivotal discussion that has to be decided by tomorrow morning at 9:58. They'll bring it right up at the last minute, and you know this is not a 2-minute discussion. In fact, you know this is going to be upsetting, and you're going to have a hard time sleeping because it's so emotionally evocative. And they'll do that, and then if you say, you know what, let's talk about this tomorrow, like, it can't wait. It has to be, we have to do this to know. And you're like, why did you wait till now? Really, seriously, why now? Or here's another one that I saw a lot happen when I was attempting to be on dating apps, which I'm not on at the moment, but when I was on the dating apps, I would say, you know, I don't text after 8. And next thing I know, somebody who wants to get to know me would text at 8:02. And then if I say, hey, sorry, you know, I'll talk to you tomorrow, they'll say, you know, what's wrong? I mean, can't you make an exception? I mean, it's just a small request, and it just will take literally 3 minutes of your time. Why would you like make me wait till tomorrow? Why not now? So they'll push it in some way that's like seems petty, that makes you feel stupid for holding the boundary. And so then you feel like, you know what? You know, if I really want to be a supportive, good person, I should just go ahead and let this go because it isn't that big of a deal. They didn't mean anything by it. And next thing you know, though, here's the problem. Once you have, you know, given in on this one little boundary, then suddenly they'll push it further, and they'll push it further, and they'll push it further. And next thing you know, now you're texting till 10 o'clock at night, and you never wanted to do that. But what they did is they weaponized, here's what they did. They weaponized your feelings and view of yourself. They gaslit you, actually, but they weaponized it in a way that you feel like you have to justify yourself in order to feel good about who you are, how they see you and perceive you. So they've sort of threatened your self-image. And for you to be protective of the self-image, you now have compromised yourself so that you don't feel bad because they're making you feel bad about it. They're so good at this. And I know that you guys can have so many other examples that you've seen it. Like, for example, I know so many of you are being legally abused. That this is like, they just go on and on and on, and it never stops. And I actually had a friend share with me how the court order gives a specific request of what this person is supposed to do, and the person is not doing them, and then they keep saying, we need to make a decision of what I need to do so I can see the kids, so I can be reunified with the kids. And it's like, it's in the court order. See the court order, but then we'll say, well, no, it's not there, and I don't understand what it's saying, and we just need to make this plan, and you're not making this plan, and why are you making it difficult? I'm not making it difficult. It's in the court order. And then when you circle back and they'll say, well, she's not doing any effort, or he's not doing any effort to have me see the kids, and they're making it difficult. And you're like, no, I am following the court order. And instead they go in and they'll say, I tried, they blocked me. I tried. In fact, the example that I just heard recently was this person is supposed to call call their children, and they're not calling their children. They're not using the proper means of calling. And so they're saying, you blocked me. That's why those calls are not going through. No, that call, there was another call that came through on the same device. Seconds before this call, the phone worked. It's that they're not calling, but they're so good at being deceptive and creating the illusion that they're complying when there's no compliance at all. And that's a super hard part, is that it's hard to prove that, because they're so good at seeing very, very logical at the time, because they make these complaints, like they come across cool and collected, and they build the case, and the points look legitimate, and yet when you show them that it's actually, you tried it, like you're getting upset, and you try to show them that it's not legitimate, that they actually have been deceptive, or they exaggerated, or they've breached the order or breached some boundary, then it looks like you're the fussy one. You're the one that's making it difficult, not them who's doing it. It is so difficult. It is so difficult. I got my boundaries crossed this week. I was so surprised. I thought, because, here's the thing. I'm going to admit something to y'all. Because it's been 5 years since my divorce, and my divorce happened really easily and quickly, thanks to the mercy of the courts, because we didn't have any property in the United States, we didn't have any bank accounts, and we didn't have no kids between us. And my son was very gravely ill with leukemia at the time, that the courts that I was dealing with granted me divorce immediately. They heard my situation, and they stamped it that afternoon. So I was literally divorced within weeks of filing my official paperwork, which I was representing myself. And I was really thankful. I felt like it was like a divine intervention, because mine was so good at being strategic that I was afraid that if he saw a mediator or saw the judge, that I was going to have a horrible ordeal, even though what I've told you, no property, no bank accounts, no home, no kids, nothing in the United States should be a simple matter. But I knew he wasn't going to make it simple, because they never make things simple. It's always a challenging. So anyway, I just felt like, whew, I got out of there. I'm so thankful. And it's been quiet. It's been 5 years of quiet, pretty much quiet. He's blocked. He has me blocked. He's not on social media. I don't have to see him. It's been peaceful. Well, I open up my email 2 days ago, and I get an official letter from the other country we're living in, and it's the country's letterhead from their version of the IRS, stating, and it's addressed to my ex, but using my personal email. Yep. He has gone in and updated his personal information with the government, that government, not the US, but that government, using my email address. Not his own, using mine. So he said his official email is my email, and they are now pursuing him for his tax returns, which apparently from this letter, he didn't submit last year's tax returns, and he's obligated by law to submit them. So it's a request for him to submit his tax returns, which he's hiding by using my email address. Now, in the US, that's a simple deal. You just say to the US, oh, IRS, you got the wrong email. Please use this new email, on and on and on, you do that. Well, it's not simple in this country. It's not simple at all. It's a very different kind of country. They think differently about things. They have different rules about things, and things mean things differently to that country. So he potentially could have really messed, because, by the way, I'm a tax entity in that country. I also pay taxes to that country as well. So he could have potentially messed it up for me. So here's the thing, and that's what they do. They don't think about in fact, he may have thought about the consequences, and he actually wanted to hurt me. But often, they're just like, they don't care. They really don't care. And what I've noticed, for example, they'll push you. I'm thinking of an example of my sister. My sister, once upon a time, when one of her relationships, the partner's grown child needed help down, ways away, and asked her, and he didn't have a vehicle, so he asked her to drive down. So they're driving down, and she didn't want to. She wasn't feeling good, and she didn't really want to use her car, and she knew she wouldn't be reimbursed, and she didn't have the money for this. You know how all of that goes. And they make all the promises. It's going to be okay. You're making a big deal out of nothing. It should be an easy thing. Why would you not just want to go help my kid? Well, she doesn't want to look like she doesn't want to help this kid. That means something to her. So she agrees to go help this adult child and drive with the gas money she doesn't have and the time she can't afford when she doesn't feel good, because my sister was battling a chronic a chronic disease that eventually took her life, so she wasn't feeling good. And they went down there, and there was then they got the car and they started driving home. And on the drive home, there was something that forgotten, and they used that emergency turnaround between highways that you're not supposed to. It's illegal. Well, the first car used it, and so she was pressured to go use it because she was supposed to follow this person home because it might break down again. Well, you're not supposed to use it. But her partner pushes her. You should use it. You need to use it. It's not that big a deal. Nobody's going to see. Well, guess what? She got hit. Somehow there was an accident using this emergency turnaround, and got hit. And sure enough, what do you think happens? She has to go to court. She has to explain why. She now has a penalty. And where is everybody that she went to help for this special thing? Well, you guessed it. Nowhere. Nowhere at all. They disappeared. Nobody helped pay for the gas. Nobody showed up for court. Nobody helped bail her out of the penalties that she now has to deal with. Nothing. So that's what happens with boundaries with narcissists, is they often make lots of wonderful promises, and they don't follow through. They're looking for what's convenient, what benefits them. They're looking for the quick and fast, the quick and easy solution. They're willing to exploit you, willing to exploit your energy, willing to exploit your time, willing to exploit your money, willing to exploit you at all levels. I mean, even thinking about the fact that my ex, in that case, he's okay with the fact that I know, in fact, if it really messes me up with this other government, I know this is what he's thinking. She can afford it. Okay, so I did that to her. She can afford it. And I know whether you can or cannot afford it, that's actually beside the point. They always think you can afford it. They never in any way think that the consequences of what they're doing is important or matters, because they fail to see you as a you. You're never a you. You are just a means to an end for them to take advantage of you. Yeah, somebody just wrote, James just wrote, complete abandonment. It is. It's abandonment at all forms. It's the abandonment to enter the relationship like a relationship. It's an abandonment of concern about your well-being. It's an abandonment of you financially, of you as a person. It's an abandonment at all these layers. It's all these abandonments that happen, which is why boundaries with narcissists fail. So I know I've gone really long in talking about this today, but let's talk about what can you do to survive this. So now that we kind of got a lot of clarity, oh, your mom is calling. Well, so good to see you, James. I'm glad you hung out with me today. Now that we got some clarity, let's talk about what you can do to protect yourself better. First of all, it's so important to recognize that if you think that you're in a relationship with somebody who's narcissistic or highly antagonistic, it is really, really important that you know that. You need to know that. And if you aren't for sure, please check out the link in my bio called Am I the Narcissist? I have a free survey that I throw out there all the time. I know for Facebook and YouTube, I'll go in and put the link in there for you so that you can find it if you want to take it. Don't take it for yourself. I want you to take it for your partner. Answer the questions as if this is your partner and see whether or not this person is really narcissistic or not. So once you know that, then you can start to become more careful about how you protect yourself now that you know that. Whether it's a he or she, you can become more protective. I also want you to know that just because you're holding a boundary, even if the people around you think it's ridiculous, stupid, silly, bad, you're cruel, whatever, it's you. This is you. And there's nothing bad about it. I want you to start to get really comfortable with being okay with your limits. Here's another example that happened in real life for me. Once upon a time, I was in a vacation camping, and we were in an area, it was in a Canadian bush, and it had been no rain all summer. No rain. It was very, very dry. It was a drought, and there were warning signs up that you're not to have an open fire. It's too dangerous to have an open fire. And I was up with friends and stuff, and they had been doing some renovation on their house, and they had this big, collection of wood that they intended to burn when it was a good time. But they were there, and they thought, well, why not use it for hot dog roast? I thought, this is really a bad plan. It's a huge bonfire. It's very unsteady, and it's super dry. And I had just earlier that spring had been burning leaves in my own woods and lost control of a small leaf fire and had to use the hose to put it out. And I just saw how fast the wind carried the flames. It was scary, just super freaked me out how fast fires go. So I said, that doesn't look like very stable bonfire. And this has been dry and it's a drought. And if you get caught, Canada is going to charge you for the cost of the fire department coming out to save the woods here, save the forest here. I don't think this is really bright. Oh, you're just making a big deal. Why didn't you just ruin all the fun, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff started to happen. It just really made me feel bad. They made me feel ashamed. So a healthy reaction to that is for you to say, you know what? This is not me. I'm not invested. And you can think what you want, but I'm not going to stick around and watch this. This is just a setup for danger. I'm uncomfortable. I'm moving out of here. That's what I did. I got up and walked away, and I thought to myself, you know what? If this does go badly, it won't be, the Canadian government's not coming after me. They won't. I mean, it was a state park area, which is why I keep using the Canadian government. But if, whatever, that government body wasn't going to come after me. It wasn't my property. It wasn't my fire. So that's one way to deal with it is understand your limits, understand that this is not directly you, and that you don't care what people think about you. I know that's not easy. It's easier said than done when it's somebody close to you and you want them to think well of you. That's really hard. But for you to understand the limits of that and understand that this isn't directly your struggle can super help you in this process. So that's one thing. So know that you're in a relationship with an antagonistic person. Understand the fact that them thinking poorly doesn't really get to define you is really helpful. And really knowing your boundaries, like going back to those circles, what's loosely held, what's kind of important to you, and what's super important to you. Know how non-negotiable things are. So those are the things that are super important to helping manage boundaries. And thank you so much for letting me go long. Yes, I will be happy to take some questions. So Magnum, I see you in the comments. You want to ask, my ex is a sociopath. It's been confirmed. He has similar traits, but nobody appears to mention these in videos. Should I be taking this advice and considering it? Yes, I would see it as the same. Actually, the partner that I was sharing with you is actually a narcissistic sociopath. So yes, I've been in relationships with psychopaths and sociopaths. I've met them professionally, and this advice applies the same. The difference between a narcissist and a sociopath or a psychopath when it comes to boundaries is that psychopaths and sociopaths actually delight in your fear. That's the horrible part. They actually get off on you getting upset. They want you upset. They'll actually do stuff on purpose to get as a charge to watch you get worked up. And what differences do you see? Like, for example, that's what I'm saying. They'll breach the boundaries the same, but they do it for different reasons. A sociopath, a psychopath definitely doesn't get in the relationship with you. They don't consider that even something they'd want. That would be too vulnerable, and they don't plan to get that vulnerable. I think some narcissists who are don't have any sociopathic tendencies, I think some of them hope that they're in the relationship. They hope that it's real, but they don't really think it's real. But the difference with a sociopath or a psychopath is that they get a dopamine rush harming you. Straight up fact. They like hurting you. They get a charge. So they also get a charge playing the risks. It's like, imagine for them, it's like everything around them is like Las Vegas, like the slot machine, and they love to see what would happen, and they particularly love to break the law just to see what somebody will do. Do you have the cojones to take them on or not? And the sad part is, with our legal system, is that it's not sophisticated enough to recognize this dynamic. It doesn't realize that they're playing. I think of Ted Bundy. Do you know why Ted Bundy went to Florida on his last escapade? Because he knew they had capital punishment, and he was directly taking on the FBI and taking on the United States government. He's taking on the state of Florida. He wanted, can you catch me? And would you really do it to me if you did? That's what he was saying. Those girls that he harmed at the very end, he didn't even care. It wasn't about that anymore. He started to play cat and mouse with the law enforcement. So that's what he was up to, and they'll get there. I think, for example, mine married me, and I really want you to be careful, guys. If you're in a helping profession, like you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're a social worker, psychologist, psychiatrist, they get excited by taking on somebody that they think should know better, that somehow may have some insight into the personality of a person or insight into the health of a person, and they'll deliberately try to get you into a relationship to see if they, one, can do it, and two, if they can sort of like outgame you. You know, I could tell that mine was deliberately charged by the fact that I was a psychologist, and he wanted to see if he could out psych me. That was part of what he was up to. Yeah. So be careful. It's a lot of therapists, unfortunately, I've heard, get into these relationships and get harmed. They get harmed because they. So here's the thing: we make some really false assumptions about psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers. Here's some false assumptions you guys all are making. One, you're making the assumption that because we can see things, we have the ability to see through dynamics, that somehow that means that we are above the dynamics, that we ourselves are above help. No, just because you can see something doesn't mean that you are not doing it yourself. That doesn't somehow proof you from problems. The other assumption that you're making is that we're somehow superhuman. We have it together. No, we do not have it together. In fact, one of the things you should be assessing when you meet any therapist is how healthy are they. And if they have poor boundaries in therapy with you, I mean, if they're like not maintaining the time and they're treating things around money weird, or they're sharing too much with you personally, they don't have good rules about their social media profile. If they're like having breaches and revealing too much or sharing too much or not reacting sensitively to what you're sharing, you haven't met a therapist who's very healthy. Unfortunately, a lot of therapists are not healthy. I know them. I could sit off and tip off my hand those that I worked around that I knew didn't have their acts together, that they weren't doing very well. So so be super careful about that. So we are not superhuman. We're not above having things happen to us. We're not above being tricked as ourselves, and that we don't have some supernatural ability to spot deceptiveness. No, we don't. We get duped all the time. And some of you guys are right now sharing stories of where you saw your couples therapist get duped right in front of you. I saw it. Mine had a PhD in psychologist, and he duped her. He got her fawning and got her, I mean, she was breaching boundaries with him. I saw it happen right in front of me, and I know she's a very good therapist. I know that normally in the run-of-the-mill person with an average, problems, neurosis and stuff, she would do fantastic. She didn't realize she'd met a sociopath. She didn't know that. And usually sociopaths don't go into therapy. So we don't usually have to be that good and be that protective because we usually don't encounter them in real life. If you're not dealing with court-mandated clients, you generally don't see them because they don't come in for therapy unless they're like trying to pretend that they're trying to get their act together. And that's what mine was doing. He was trying to pretend. So, yeah, we really are their victims. I agree with you. They love to tell me how he got me because he wanted to give me a better life. Oh, mine said the same thing. He saw me as a weak target. Oh, mine did too. I don't know if you know my story, but I was widowed. He actually told me, and I didn't even, here's the part, I mean, like, you learned to read context and subcontext, and you didn't catch this? Yeah, I mean, a part of me caught it a little bit, but I didn't want to know it. It was one of those things called betrayal blindness where I didn't want to know. But on the first date where we met face to face, he said he'd been researching widows on dating apps. Now that I say that, the way I just said it, you would think, oh, Kerry, shit. Yeah. He was looking for a specific target. He was looking for widows with life insurance. Let's finish the line. Widows with life insurance. What I heard was, this is how I took it because I didn't see the world that way. Oh, he's trying to understand me. Seriously, that's what I thought. Isn't that so sweet? He's trying to understand me. No, he actually divulged something he shouldn't have. He blurted it out. He probably regretted that he blurted it out. And his arrogance, he sort of didn't hold his tongue and shared something that was very revealing. And I didn't understand until it was all over and I had the whole context that from the beginning, this man had been looking for a widow so that he could get her money. I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. I missed that piece. That my story, Magna, is a setup. My ex married me as part of a con. The whole thing was a con. So if you guys are interested in reading about it and hearing what happened to me, I do tell the brutal story, the brutal truth in Love You More. So yeah, please check out Love You More. It's on, I bet you it has over 400 ratings now on Amazon. And it's over a 4, which really is deeply touches me. Thank you so much, guys, for those of you who've read it and left a review for me. That means the world to me. But I also want to talk about my other books, though. So yeah, Love You More is the name of my book, Love You More. Because here's the thing. He kept saying to me, I would say, I love you, because he wouldn't say I love you spontaneously. I should have seen that as a warning. But I would say, I love you. And he'd say, love you more. And then I'd say, no, I love you more. And then I'd say, no, I love you more. And I got exhausted. Seriously, he would not stop playing the game. It just wore me out. So when I realized the whole thing was that was like a play in words. And by the way, I released it on Valentine's Day. Isn't that like perfect? So it was published on Valentine's Day, 2022. Spent 3 years writing it. But yeah, it was. Yeah, he didn't love me more. He didn't love me at all. And I unfortunately didn't know it. And thank you guys for so much for that. And yeah, I found a new online store. I'm going to give a plug. I have no relationship with this store. I actually saw them on Instagram. So this came from Angel Heart Boutique. So if you're a plus size woman that really likes to have cool clothes that looks different, you're feeling like sort of frustrated, they sell lots of tops and jackets, and they fit perfectly. They fit beautifully. So if you're looking for something and you're really kind of tired of the standard looks of stuff, check out Angel Heart Boutique. I have, like I said, no connection with them. Nope, there's no affiliate links related to this. I just really, I'm so pleased. So lately, some of the new clothes you've been seeing me in, I've been wearing their clothing. I've been very, very happy. So yeah, we have books though to help, guys. So if I know I've taken a lot of the time and talked about it. So if you guys are struggling, please, I just added Lisa Sunny's book in TikTok shop called the Trauma Bond Recovery Journal. The reason it looks this way, because this is the way I ship it. And I packaged it up so I could take photos of how I ship it. So I make it look pretty for you guys. So if you're struggling to break the trauma bond and you really want a book that's a journal that helps you kind of process what you're going through, she has 12 steps. This is 12 steps. Now, if you're stuck with a trauma bond and really wanting to break it, then the other thing that you definitely need to get is my book called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. They're almost like, imagine these are like two sides of the quarter. So here's how to break the trauma bond, and here's how to see the truth and break through the confusion. So if you don't know what's real, what's true, you're feeling super, super confused. Maybe you're like, do they really love me or do they not? Like the example I gave you the example of, he said to me, love you more, and I never loved you so much, and I've never worked so hard, and yet his behavior was not that. That's a cognitive dissonance problem. So you really need to break the confusion to figure out the truth, but you also need to break the bond. So those two, I sort of see, I wish TikTok let me sell them together because they really go together. They really go together as part of it. If you're struggling to explain what you're going through, then you really need Narcissism Unmasked. This is a glossary of terminology like hoovering, cognitive dissonance, what's DARVO, what's everything that you could possibly think of. This is a book that includes all the terms. What is a narcissist? What's cluster B? What other personality disorders are in cluster B? Lisa Sunny wrote this. Lisa Sunny wrote The Trauma Bond Recovery. I wrote First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. And then Lisa and I wrote together Surviving to Thriving. So if you're now in the after part and you're trying to like recover and you don't know like how to do it, like you're really like floored and struggling, we're setting up group coach. We have a group coaching that's starting back up in August that will help you, but you also can have this book in the meantime. It's called Surviving to Thriving. This offers the 6 steps. Now the group coaching actually takes you through 12 steps. It's called Healing Strong. And what I'm so excited. So if you're interested in the group coaching, her and I are now launching 2 new group coaching programs. One we haven't named, which is going to be for those who are still stuck in the relationship and can't get out. So we're going to offer one that kind of breaks the cognitive dissonance and breaks the trauma bond. But we're also going to be launching a new one called New Powerful You. New Powerful You is my baby. I've been talking about it a while. It's if you like today around boundaries, it's going to be a master class on how the techniques that exploitive people use to get us trapped in relationships and get us mixed up so we don't even know what's up and what's down. So if you want to learn all this predatory, exploitive stuff, like why do they do that and how do they do that? And when it happens, what should you do to stop it? So if you really like Gavin DeBecker's book, Gift of Fear, if you really like kind of dark psychology, you want to understand all of that, that's going to be New Powerful You. We're launching this in September. New Powerful You. It's a 10-week program, and it's going to be an hour and a half because we're going to just pack it full of all sorts of really good stuff to help you with that. Okay. Because I don't have any place to go, I'm going to let this go long today. So what is on your mind today that you would love to ask me? I know that I have, just lost it. I just lost TikTok. My power went out. So now I'm here only with YouTube and Facebook. What would you guys like to ask me that I can answer? And I'm just here, like I said, with Facebook and YouTube only. Yeah, so scrap along. I honestly don't too much. Do the things I love. I live a dry life. As long as I'm living with a narcissist, I have a lot of things in my mind. I know that you do. I understand that you do. Is this group for those who are always on your way? Oh, already who's out? Okay, so that's a great question on your own. The one that we haven't named that's going to be based on the trauma bond recovery as well as cognitive dissonance, it doesn't have a name yet. That one's going to be for people who's in the relationship, exclusively for people who are in the relationship and they want to get out and they don't know why they can't get out. So we're deliberately, we haven't up to now, outside of the books we haven't been doing any coaching of that group outside of Lisa does one-on-one coaching with them directly. I don't provide one-on-one coaching unless you're in my support group. Now, my support group is for everybody. You can be in it or out it. It doesn't matter. So I do have that. I don't know if you know that on my way, that I do have a membership tier is for everybody. But that group coaching that we're going to build out that will be probably start early 2025 is going to be for those specifically who's in the group. The other group, the New Powerful You, you can be in it. I don't think we're going to make a requirement that you be out. I think you can be in it, but it would be more helpful. I mean, yeah, I'll give you tactics to use actively. So yeah, I don't think we'll make it you have to be out. The New Powerful You. The Healing Strong is only for those who are outside the relationship, though. So that one's going to start back up in August and September. That one is going to be specifically for those who are looking to heal. Scrap along. You know what happened to the scrap along is that the men's stuff is that we can't get any interest. It's really hard to get interest. So unfortunately, we've scrapped everything for men. But these groups are for men and women. Now, the retreats are for women only, but the groups are for men and women. We do have a guy in one of the groups. So, and he's doing fine. He's loving it. He's doing great. So you can certainly consider the New Powerful You and the Surviving to Thriving scrap along. I think they would be really, really helpful to you. Yeah, and then on my way, I don't know, I do know about your groups. I'm out. Okay, yeah. So I didn't answer your question, Magnum. You said you're afraid about group coaching because you've never done it before. I used to have a bias where I really liked individual therapy better than group coaching, and I have found though that group coaching is an amazing experience. So here's why I've become such a massive proponent of it. I've really, yeah, I know, Scrabble, I agree. I'm really bummed too. I'm really bummed about it. But okay, and not to say we might not bring it back, but we're not ready. We don't understand the male victim's mind well. We really don't. There's a lot we need to learn first, so we can't position it well right now because we don't understand it well enough. But anyway, why I'm really a big proponent of groups right now. So healing, over and over, I keep hearing, this is what I hear from all the professionals and all the training that I've done about narcissistic abuse, that it is a traumatic experience, that when you guys exit these relationships, you're highly traumatized. And the best recourse for trauma, according to the research, is that you get support. And in fact, that is what causes a stall in healing, is when there's a lack of support from your community, from your support network. Well, we all know what happens with narcissistic abuse. There's very poor support. The world around us doesn't understand what happened. So they're not very good at showing up and giving us what we need and giving us validation. Instead, they just make us feel worse. They pile it on, they blame us, they shame us, they shut us down, all of that stuff that happens that really makes it not safe. So we end up going alone. We just don't talk to anybody. And yet, all the research keeps saying that support is critical for healing. It's just essential. So what happens inside of these group coaching? So please understand, there's different types of groups. Some groups are just open-ended. So for example, if you were to join my Toxic Free Relationship Club, then and I have group every Tuesday afternoon at 5:30 all the time. It's an open-ended. So we talk about whatever is most pressing. It's just kind of like the group determines it. And then maybe that's great. What's different about group coaching is it's actually a program. So each week there's lessons. There's reflective questions. There's actually homework. Like you're given exercises. We come back and we review. We do all this training inside the group program. So yet there's also this community. You're getting to know each other. You're building relationship with each other. And you're spending, think about it, 3 months with this group, a small group of people of 8 people. So it just becomes a very powerful experience where you really get to know each other, and then you get to really know Lisa and I as presenters, and then you have this dynamic of which you actually are building skills. My group support for my membership, what you're building more is just kind of community support. You're getting to know me, you're getting to ask advice of me when you need it. So that's how they differ. The group programming is a program. What I do in my membership is more group, ongoing, open-ended group support. So both are different types of group. So you may find, for example, wow, I can't really wait. I really need to get into a community. Then please consider Toxic Free Relationship Club. There's a community component for $15 a month. And then there is the club component that's for $75 a month. The reason for the jump is because it's weekly group coaching. You get immediate access to my online course. You get my books for free. You have direct access to me. You also, it's a whole host of stuff that makes $75 when you really think about it. Even the cost of one call for group call would be like at least $60, and you're getting 4 of those a month. We also have a book club. We're reading books together. So anyway, loads and loads of support. But that's why. So I would recommend that you do it. I think you'd find it extremely beneficial, very healing. That's what I found. We ran the first group through, and by the way, we do it in the afternoon in the United States. So for you, it's in the evening. So Magna, it's very feasible for you to. I don't know how to pronounce your first name. I'm really apologizing for. If you want to put it phonetically, how I should say CEA phonetically, because I have a feeling it's either Gaelic or it's Irish. Am I guessing it correctly? So, and I want to visit Ireland or UK, by the way. I'm planning to trip. I'm thinking in 2025 to go, and I plan to announce it so I can have meetups and meet people in the UK, because one of the biggest groups of people who listen to my podcast is in the UK. I just find that amazing. So I'd really love to be able to meet those who are there. But anyway, where was it going with this? Yeah. So there's tiers. So C, like SEE, C Magnum. Oh, it's really beautiful. So there's tiers. So the $5 a month, you get the newsletter with packed all sorts of stuff, exclusive content. For $15 a month, you get the newsletter and the community group, which you get immediate access to me and the support of the community. For $75 a month, you get newsletter, the community, and you get the group coaching, book club, online course, all that stuff. And then there's even a top tier, which includes one-on-ones with me once a month. So if you're interested, check out the link in my bio. I'll make sure to, thank you. I'll make sure I put the link in there. Well, this has really been great. Any other questions for me? Maria wanted to know, what about the professionals? If they are the professional who knows better and does it, what if they are the professional who knows better and does it? Yeah, that's interesting. There are predatory people who get attracted to the field of psychology, get attracted to the field of medicine, and certainly to law. Very, very much so. Oh, you're the UKRW? I didn't know that. Oh, thank you. Well, that's exciting. Yeah, keep it. I will definitely announce when I come to the UK, and that I'll let you know where I'm going to be at, because I'm going to visit a few people. So I want to travel. You guys know how huge the United States are, right? There's a Brit that I've been following who moved here a while ago, and she's like, listen, the reason they don't know the international is because the U.S. is greater than the size of Europe. U.S. is massive, so the ability of us to even visit our own country is it's very limited. So, yeah. It is. So yeah, I'll let you know where I travel, and I'll be using a train primarily. So, but yes, there are predatory people who are professionals, and do they know that they are predatory? I think some do. I think some don't. I don't always know. I don't always think they have insight into that. And Maria, I'm glad that you got recommended the book by Cloud and Townsend called Boundaries. Oh, she recommended that you give it to your narcissist. Oh, no, 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 I would never have done that. That would be no, bad, no. Hey, that's a really great piece of advice. And that is this. I would love you to please do never try to change your ex. Please don't. Please don't gift them things. Don't recommend they watch stuff. Don't do any of that. All of that's going to happen. It's going to get weaponized to be used against you. Absolutely. Um, they'll see that as a vulnerability, or at least they'll see it as contemptuous and silly and disgusting and stupid and insulting. And at the most, they'll see that as an attack. They'll see it as an attack. That's what happened to Maria. She said it got thrown right back in her face, although he never read it. Yeah, they'll use it against you. They'll weaponize it. So please never do that. That's why we also don't recommend couples therapy either, because it happens the same way. You know, they weaponize that as well. They make it very, very dangerous. Yeah, everybody, here's the hard part. Everybody is responsible for their own behavior. We really are. And if we don't make changes, and even though those around us say that they're distressed by what we're doing and we don't care enough, that's actually an indication of that person. It's not really about you, it's about that person. It says that they care too little about you. You're not significant to them. So see it as information. I think that's the best way to view it. It's just really as information. Well, guys, any other last question before I wrap it up today? I really, really appreciated it. And see, I'm so glad to get to meet you. RW and RWD are scrap along, and so on my way are my regulars. I always love hanging out with you guys every week, and so is Andrea and Maria and Kimberly is new. I mean, Kimberly I know really well, but I'm thrilled that Kimberly's here. But Maria and Andrea, I always love hanging out with you guys too. So let me know how I can help you guys, and if you ever have a good, in fact, I haven't posted it on YouTube yet, but I'm planning to do a new series. I'm introducing a character. I'm creating a narcissistic personality that I'm going to be interviewing as like a psychologist, interviewing this narcissist. Now, it wouldn't happen in real life, but I'm going to pose this narcissist questions and give the responses from their perspective. So I'm hoping to have a little fun. It's gonna take get me out of my comfort zone, do something new. So I'm kind of excited about that. Yeah, it was really wonderful talking to you. So you guys, you have a great rest of the week. Normally, I'm here Tuesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So same time as this time today, only usually it's always on Tuesday. This week I had a root canal last night, and yesterday. I had a root canal yesterday, so I wasn't able to go live. I couldn't talk. I was still numb, so that's why I didn't do it yesterday. But I wanted to come on and see you all. Next week, we're going to be talking about passive-aggressive behavior. So if you're interested in learning more about passive aggressiveness, come back next week. We'll talk about it. So, all right, you guys, you take care. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.